Good afternoon. Excited to share some information with you today. This is Coach Bob, and looking forward to talk a little bit about the topic of cultivating a promote from within culture. Again, if you're joining us on Zoom, great. If you're joining us live feed, excellent. If you're rewatching this, super. Hopefully, there'll be some key content here in regards to the importance of the whole concept of promote from within culture. What's really, really important as far as creating the culture, what's the value in that? And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, some building blocks, and then a couple applications. So be here for about a half hour and look forward to sharing this information with you. So again, thanks for being here if you're in on Zoom and or in live. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and following the workshop, like I said, or following the webinar here. If you have any questions or want some follow-up resources that might be helpful to you and or your team, please feel free to reach out. Happy to share whatever is beneficial to you. I also provided a link in the Zoom meeting registration information to some worksheets if you wanted to take some notes on some of the information being shared today. So by definition, promote from within culture. And again, I've had an opportunity to work with some great organizations over the last 25 years. In my experience, and handfuls of those organizations had really strong promote from within cultures. And really, it comes down to number one, are your people informed? 100% of your people know that when there is a job vacancy available within the organization, that they're going to get an opportunity to apply for that. There's going to be knowledge of those jobs. So again, you have the systems and processes in place that make that something that is available. And again, if people are being made aware of that, that's super, super important as well. So at any rate, you can take a look here, next level team member readiness. So again, we'll talk about some of the components involved in that. And are you committed there? Do people feel that number one, they're aware of jobs? Number two, that there's resources and there's processes in place and programs in place to help them be ready for being eligible for applying for and getting those jobs, right? And then full engagement in career growth. So this has to be a priority. Is it one of your scorecard elements when it comes to performance management of leaders at all levels within your organization? And they need to be fully committed to the career development and growth as a priority of all of their people. And so again, all these moving parts kind of have to be working together. I would say you don't have to accomplish all these things at one time, but if you can move the needle on any elements within your organization, that can be really, really helpful to contributing to, ultimately creating a culture that's really focused on from promoting from within, and that's going to serve you fairly well. So a couple key things when we talk about the advantages of creating a promote from within culture. One, I like to just call overall wisdom. And here, I think I really want to stress, the difference between just knowledge, skills, abilities. I think those are all fairly important. And when we lose someone and they take years and years of experience and years of contacts and networks and all these other things with them, whether they retire, whether they advance maybe into another organization and transition, whatever the reason, that's tough regardless, just kind of the baseline elements, right? Here, though, I want you to think a little bit more about the fact that wisdom by definition is what that person leaves with as far as their experience creating their ability to make judgment calls, make decisions, right? And they're doing those things in alignment with the organization's current culture, the organization's current values, their experience related to the relationships in the organization and how the organization gets things done and expects things to be accomplished, right? So when I talk about wisdom, that's really what I'm talking about here is when we lose someone and we don't promote from within. If we promote from within, wisdom comes, with that person as they advance into that next level. And again, we have the capability from a knowledge, skills, ability, experience perspective to prepare those people. But what external candidates don't have is basically the organization wisdom when it comes to that judgment, those decision making, the problem solving, and the alignment with the current culture. So that can create quite a gap. And again, something that's really, really important. So, one of the things I like to do is just have a couple of reflective questions as I go through content. So just think about this. Have you experienced a lack of wisdom? Meaning, again, someone maybe from the outside that's come into an organization, not as familiar with kind of how things get done, decisions get made, problems get solved. So when we think about their judgment, it's based on external versus internal experience. And how has that created some friction? Has it derailed folks where they were actually they failed in the new role? You had to kind of start over in regards to going out and hiring someone. Did it create some roadblocks with the team? And I think most of us can say, yeah, that's probably happened. And it wasn't they had a lack of capability, lack of educational background, a lack of experience in an industry, right? It was just a disconnect in regards to how what I'm calling wisdom here is organizational wisdom, and that gap again, tough to fill, right? Some of those other things a little bit easier to fill. So something to think about in regards to that particular advantage. The second advantage of a promote from within culture, trust and credibility. So again, here you see all kinds of percentages. We know that if we operate in high levels organizations and with team members with high levels of trust, leadership, all those types of things, the importance of that, right? All kinds of information that backs that up. So the key with a promote from within culture is if it's done correctly. Again, if people know, that they are going to be eligible for certain positions. If you've done your homework, we'll talk a little bit about succession planning. But if you've done your homework in succession planning, people probably know, if they are in line, if you would, for that next level role, the people around them know that too, right? So the internal candidate carries a tremendous amount of trust and credibility because that's already been established in connection and relationships with their colleagues, with their coworkers. And when they get promoted, that travels with them. And again, externally, that's something where external people come in and it's not already present, right? So just like the wisdom, again, trust and credibility is another one of those things that when we work from a promote from within culture is really, really important. If we miss the boat in regards to trust, how much does it cost? And I just kind of, Googled lots of different figures, but basically 18% of salary, meaning if it's an individual hired from the outside, there might be an 18% difference, right? Just in cost associated with some of these factors that are related to trust, credibility, productivity, stress, transitional stress, all those types of things associated with that. So if you think about that, that's a pretty big number. And again, depending on the number of people that you're promoting and moving through and the size of your organization, that can be pretty significant in regards to dollars and cents. So again, here in regards to kind of the advantage number two being trust and credibility, how long does it take you personally, right, to trust an externally hired manager? So you get a new boss. How long does it take to establish trust and feel trustworthy? And the same thing for a teammate. Most of the time, that requires some time, right? And most organizations don't do this very deliberately that I work with, right? If I work with teams and organizations and leaders, they're not always doing these trust building, connection, relationship building things very deliberately. And that's going to extend that period of time in regards to how long, and again, extend that impact as you go back to some of those things that are impacted by how high levels of trust and credibility. It's not there, obviously, more stress and opportunities lost, if you will. Okay. So advantage number three, reward loyalty, right? So again, it makes sense that if I have a promote from within culture, if folks are working for us and I'm talking with people as soon as they walk in the door about career development, career paths, those types of things, people are working forward. And again, if I stick around, I put in my time, my knowledge, my skills, my abilities. I'm willing to learn what I need to learn. I'm willing to experience what I need to experience. A promote from within culture actually then rewards people, right, for sticking around, for being loyal. And for most organizations and leaders I talk with, stickiness is important, and it's gotten a lot tougher, right? When we look at retention, short-term turnover, all of these types of numbers and figures within your organizations become very costly. So again, a promote from within culture can really reward that loyalty. If you take a look here, just some Gen Z figures, and if you think about this, they, new folks coming into the work environment, whether it's realistic or not, they're looking for movement and opportunities fast, right? So in this case, 40% within a year, 18 months, you got 70% of new hires that you're hiring in this Gen Z age group, if you will, expect the opportunities to come in, start, work hard, and advance. Okay. So the question then becomes, do you want a career to create a career path for folks, promote from within cultures and the elements that go with that right from day one when people are hired? Or do we just not hire that age group, right? Just don't hire anybody from the age group of 18 to 27. And I don't think that's a realistic option. So again, the importance of kind of developing this particular type of culture. Advantage number four, talent magnet. So again, when I mentioned stickiness and retention, that can be a costly, venture for organizations. Just had coffee this morning with someone, and at their entry level for this particular industry, they're turning folks at 40%. That might even be the industry average, but they're looking to decrease that, obviously, just due to the extreme cost. On the other side is, again, how readily do people want to work for you, right? Your organization. What's your reputation as far as a great employer, if you will? Promote from within cultures, basically, if you take advantage and you market that information, they become a talent magnet. All right. So again, if you take a look at the figures here, 44 days to fill an open position. And the question becomes, one, if I'm promoting from within, I probably fill key roles faster, right? The second thing is the reputation of a promote from within culture will draw applicants, and you will probably have a larger pool of qualified candidates interested in your organization to shrink, again, that time to fill rate. Okay, so advantages from the promote from within, talent magnet wise, both internal fill rates is going to be faster than external fill rates, and your external fill rates should decrease based on a better candidate pool, as well as recommendations internally from your current employees, right? They get promoted and they have to backfill their roles, and they kind of know that, right? It's just part of the culture. They're going to be referring friends and family and contacts and looking for within their networks to help you out as well. So can really impact as far as a recruitment side of things as well as a retention side of things. Okay. If you think about how much you will save if you just reduce your time to fill rates by 20%. All industries are different, all organizations are different. But again, if you take a look at what your time to fill rate is, if it's 44 days and we cut 8 or 9 days off of that, what's that cost savings, to you, to your recruitment team, productivity, numbers that get impacted by people being out, folks doing double duty work, whether you bring in external temps, whatever that is, right? And at the same time, we hope to be improving new hire quality because we're promoting folks that are ready and obviously trained by us, right? Have the wisdom and all of those things in the roles. And then we're drawing better qualified talent based on our reputation of being a promote from within organization. So again, four real key advantages to spending some time on a promote from within culture. All right. Now, the key here, building blocks wise, just kind of keep it simple. There's nothing simple, I don't think. I should say it's not overly complex, but I do believe it does require quite a bit of, initial effort and willingness and some resources, all those wonderful things to kind of create this culture. If you're already on your way, obviously a little bit easier and you're kind of pedaling downhill, if you will. All right. But three key building blocks: strategic planning, absolutely important, incorporating this concept of a promote from within culture and the elements of that. We'll talk a little bit about the elements of ownership and marketing as well. So when we look into strategic planning, breaking that down, right, into a couple different things is one, when we're talking about the strategy moving forward for the organization, where our business is heading, how we're going to get there, all of those types of things, we have to be thinking about all of the components that go into that from a people perspective, right? So one, workforce planning. And again, I just have some of these models I popping up here that I found that I thought were interesting just as examples. But coming out of strategic planning, we're going to know kind of where's our business going, and what are the needs from a workforce planning perspective that we need to be addressing. Okay, so our current workforce analysis versus our future workforce analysis as our business is growing, as we're expanding, whether it's merger acquisitions, whatever those types of things are, we have to have a labor plan for that. And there's usually some type of gap analysis. And then we're looking at, okay, this is where we are, this is where we're heading. So a key component of the promote from within culture would be looking internally first in regards to how are we going to fill these workforce gaps. And that's going to cause a little bit of a domino effect pushing down through the organization as far as, let's just say from a hierarchical perspective, we want to promote from within these roles. Hey, there's going to be X number of new management, general management roles within the next year. Who's lining up for those? How does that impact the roles next in line, if you will? Okay, so again, when you're looking at workforce planning, matching up labor lines, scheduling needs to deliver on business deliverables, we have to take that into consideration if we're taking a look at looking internally first. Okay, makes sense. Secondly, types of succession planning, and here I think organizations, for the most part, there's not as much or any succession planning going on. It's most of the time, oh my gosh, they're leaving, who should fill the role, right? So I think one is doing some level of succession planning is going to be helpful. A couple things where you may want to focus. I like this particular graphic here. Again, strategic leadership development. How are we planning for folks to be promoted within the organization as their increased need for leadership levels? And that's expanding, right? So the more people we hire, we're going to have higher level, different levels of leadership being impacted. It may be we're expanding our senior leadership team, but that's going to require some time and resources to make sure people are ready to fill those types of roles. Departure defined. Now that's key, being defined, meaning maybe these are retiring folks at different levels in the organization. And then lastly, obviously, someone may leave due to emergency or unplanned leave. And how are we backfilling for that? In all three of these cases, if we have a promote from within culture established, we are working on all three of these components all of the time. Okay, so again, if new leadership roles open up, we've done our work and we've identified folks and the skills they need to backfill some of those leadership roles. They're probably in that pipeline at least 12 months in advance. In my opinion, I do that coaching work, and usually it takes 12 months of different types of experience being offered in a time frame to really help people be ready for those roles. The second one, define departure, again, planning for people that may be retiring or transitioning out with some level of notice. But again, we're working with identified folks for key roles as part of the promote from within culture and helping them be ready for those positions, as well as all levels of people within the organization from a career development perspective. Okay, that'll take us over to a succession management plan. So again, just talking about this, if it's something you don't have in place, there's various different components of that, but we always start with the organization strategy and plan, right? And then we move forward in regards to key position analysis, similar to workforce planning, but in this case, succession management having to do with who's moving into what leadership and management roles within the organization. And hierarchically, when we think about succession, it's always kind of moving up, right? Sometimes moving over if we have an expansion or growth in a particular area or segment, maybe a geographic area, and someone's in a particular role and they're absorbing more responsibility and scope of responsibility and growing the office as an example, but they still are going to need the support of a promote from within culture and the elements associated with career development, job readiness as their role grows. Okay, so all of these things still pretty applicable when it comes to taking a look at succession management and succession planning, obviously being pretty important and an important component of that particular culture. All right. Within that framework, once we've identified folks for succession or we looked at workforce planning, there's going to be new roles and opportunities for folks to make some moves. Career development has to be occurring at all levels, and a career development program. So again, in most organizations I work with, they will support career development, but is there really a structured career development program? Is there an expectation when someone comes in on day one onboarding that we're communicating what career development looks like and the processes, the plans, and the resources? And then after that, shortly after that, probably within 3 months, if you remember, again, that new Generation Zers, right? Expectations is 18 months. So probably even after 3 months, sitting down and kind of taking a look at, the organization, the structure, the positions, the roles. And again, that could be nothing more than a blank org chart, right? With different types of positions and roles on there, but some type of graphic that gives a person an idea of where they are and where they want to work towards, right? Is that within their current functional area? Is that jumping across functional areas and getting a scope of responsibility that's more, I'd say, lateral in movement, but expanding their experience so that they can make more of a vertical jump. But career development, again, super important. And if we don't really have a career development program, career development resources, career development processes, it makes kind of the next building block impossible, right? Which is engaging kind of our leadership in these components that are feeding that promote from within culture. All right, we can't say we promote from within if we don't do anything with career development, if we don't do anything with succession management, we don't do anything with workforce planning. Yes, you can promote from within, but it's probably not very successful. You probably can't really leverage it, and it's not going to be serving you very well. All right, so to maximize value, these components need to be working together. All right. The last piece, obviously, is once we map out things career development wise, that aligns with succession planning, it aligns with where our workforce needs are going to be from a labor and scheduling perspective. We take a look at what is the specific talent development strategies necessary to ensure that career development can occur. People are ready for succession planning, and we have the workforce that we need with the skills and the abilities to deliver on our business objectives. Okay, so all these things tying together. And again, internally, having some level of talent management strategy, resources need to be available. Lots of times we're assessing talent in some way, shape, or form, qualitative, quantitative wise. The idea of performance management as it mirrors up with career development. We got to be taking a look at the data analysis and where people are kind of plotting, how are they progressing, and being honest and communicating on an ongoing basis with them and providing the learning and development resources necessary for folks to be ready, right, to go ahead and take those promotions and take that job growth, whether that's hierarchical, vertical, horizontal, or whichever way in the organization. And again, always thinking strategic alignment, right? So our talent development processes need to kind of align with our strategy and where the business is heading. So the other two building blocks that I'll talk a little bit about briefly, are these two. One, the importance of ownership. So if you really take a look at some of the best, one of my clients is Stu Leonard's, and it's a grocery chain down in Connecticut and Long Island, New York City area, and things. But they have a huge track record from promoting people, managers of all levels. They're in leadership programs. They get coaching work. They've done the work in all of these elements. They also really emphasize the expectations of hiring from within whenever possible. Okay. And it doesn't mean that they're not considering external candidates. But people know, right, that if it's close, man, they're going to take the internal person for a lot of the reasons that we've been chatting about. All right. All levels of leadership have to be part of the process. You cannot possibly impact career development two levels removed. So frontline leaders and managers, supervisors, team leads, project managers, those folks that are interacting with people that are frontline employees, kind of the entry level in the organization, or frontline workers, or individual contributors, all of them have to be, owners of the expectation of having these folks ready for promotion, growing our people from within and committed to their development. And if some people don't want to develop out of their roles, they're still committed to developing within their roles. So development and career growth is really, really important in the organization at all levels. It needs to be reinforced. Also, team members. It's up to them, right? With the knowledge that we have this process, we have these things in place, we have these commitments made. Employees need to take ownership of their career development. They need to be engaged in that process. They need to be active learners. They need to have access to resources and be aware of what those resources are. They have to go out and, pursue those mentors and those internal network contacts within the organization, external to the organization, to make those things happen. But again, all of that being part of that career development process and the support from upper management, all levels. Okay. The third thing in regards to the building blocks of a successful program to build a promote from within culture. And you think about culture, it's kind of a funny thing. It's a moving target, right? It always evolves and all those things. But internal communication. So do you have a strong employee communication process, because again, the more it's communicated, the higher levels of awareness, the more folks are owning their own development, the more managers are aware of what the resources are, how they should be leveraging those. How are we celebrating and recognizing promotions from within? So we should be, really recognizing those things, recognizing managers who've successfully promoted folks from within their departments. How are we being recognized as an employer that promotes from within, and the benefits of that? And then lastly, external communication is sharing that out. How do we share our successes within the industry? Kind of become known for how this particular promote from within culture can really benefit us. And again, when we think about being sticky, as well as being a talent magnet, that's where the marketing and the communication, both internally and externally, can really make a difference. All right. So again, key question here, how far along are you in regards to really cultivating and promote from within culture, right? You may have some of these elements in place. Are they working together? Do they align with your business strategy and strategic planning? Maybe I'm pretty strong on the talent development, but we don't do a lot of work on the career development. But I always ask people, on a 1 to 10, how are we doing overall? And what do you want to do about it? Right. If you want to partner, you want to chat, lay out some structures, I would suggest, doing that, right? Expedite it. And again, if there's buy-in in regards to those four core advantages and how they can really impact your organization, the numbers don't lie, right? And I think these days, as far as recruitment and retention are concerned, it can be a real advantage for you, right? I'll just close with this. How do you leverage the culture? So now we've established that culture. You probably are familiar with some organizations that are known for promoting from within and filling internal vacancies with candidates and things from within their organizations. One I mentioned is the recruitment strategies. So how do you incorporate that in regards to our recruitment information, how we're posting jobs? Why work for us? Because you're going to be given opportunities to learn, grow, develop, basically advance your careers, right? Engagement and retention internally, kind of common sense factors here. But again, if folks are consistently feeling that support for their growth within their roles, their preparation for next level advancement, if team members around them are being promoted, that they have good relationships with and high levels of credibility and trust, and we're constantly reinforcing that as an organization, that's going to pay dividends, right? So leveraging that information should impact your engagement, surveys, all those wonderful things, your retention numbers. All right. Sales and service wise, consistency. I would say most of us have probably experienced working with a particular vendor or organization. And, every time we call, there's somebody else we're dealing with, someone new, right? In service or in sales. And it's like a revolving door, right? So one of the nice things about from a promote from within culture is, we may be more familiar with folks because they've been in the organization for longer and they're in different roles. They can do those handoffs more easily, right? Folks filling that role bring that wisdom with them. So it is not quite as much of a new person I'm dealing with. Yeah, it's a new person, but they're pretty seasoned in the organization. And then lastly, in the communities, it can make a big difference, right? If you have this reputation of promote from within culture, you can share that out. You can help other people in the organizations around you do something similar and benefit from some of the advantages of creating those particular cultures. You can engage, again, the community and the people within your organization back into the community in ways that are, again, much more flexible, right? If we have more of a consistent workforce and we've maximized that internal wisdom, if community outreach is important to your organization, that's going to be part of that wisdom and part of your culture and something that's going to continue to grow and develop, internal as we promote and advance folks within the organization. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. And like I said, happy to share any information that might be helpful to you. If you need a little bit more detail on any of these components, I'd love to chat a little bit more if you have an opportunity to do so. Feel free if you haven't linked in with me already, but most of you are here either LinkedIn Live or through one of the other live streaming services. That's my contact information as far as an email. Feel free to give me a shout out. But hope that this has been helpful and the elements around kind of a promote from within culture. If anything resonates, that's excellent. And I wish you the best of luck at creating that culture and taking advantage of it. Have a great, great afternoon.